Uh, Welcome everyone to our panel about technology's evolving role in transformation. I'm joined by some esteemed panelists. I'm going to quickly introduce them and hop into the content. First, Sunny Sonnenstein, Chief Information Officer at M&T Bank. He runs, he's on the technology executive team and the consumer bank executive team. And so, Sunny, thank you for joining us today. Second, Melissa Stevens, Chief Digital Officer at Fifth Third Bank from my hometown, Cincinnati. Melissa is responsible for creating the strategic plan around integrated omni-channel customer experience for all lines of business at Fifth Third Bank. And prior to Fifth Third, she was operating Citi's FinTech division, Chief Operating Officer, and which they were trying to create a smartphone-centric business model. Melissa, thank you for joining us. And lastly, Sovan Shakbathi, SVP and Chief Technology Officer, Navy Federal Credit Union. His CTO organization is responsible for technology strategy, architecture, product engineering, delivery. And before that, he had a wide array of different things going where it was, related to, he worked at Amtrak on the travel space. He worked in tech at Cisco and Oracle and other senior leadership roles at tech companies. Sovan, thank you for joining us. I'm going to start by asking, we just watched a bunch of really good sessions on how the world is changing. And one thing that I talked about with you, Melissa, before this was you feel like you were kind of doing all the things that you were already kind of on the right track before COVID hit. And not necessarily things have changed, but in some ways, I think of digital transformations now as table stakes, and how fast we can move is the differentiator. I'm curious how you'd react to that and what you think about how you've seen Fifth Third evolve in the last 6-9 months.
Yeah, thanks, Nima. Did it work now? I've muted it a couple of times.
You are good.
Okay. All right. So thanks. Yeah, I know my colleagues will say similar things, but the good news is I agree. Digital transformation is really table stakes for any bank or any insurtech, any financial institution. At this point, it's the core of what we do, and we really have to be driving forward. Not just because customers want to work on a device like their phone or things like that, but just frankly, the digitization of things and the expectation of speed and transparency of information is so important to customers that you've got to be driving the digital transformation. And as you said, when the pandemic hit, certainly none of us expected it, but we found ourselves, like some others, in a situation where we were working on what I'll call the right themes, the right strategic areas, and it was a matter of in what places did we need to pivot resources so we could accelerate even more than we were, and find opportunities to kind of serve the customers more and better, whether it was hardship assistance for consumers or small businesses, the Paycheck Protection Program that was so critical for so many of us, or frankly, just being able to be there through digital messaging and chatting with customers asynchronously to help them on things. And so we found ourselves in a situation like many others where some people were slowing down in their work. Our teams were speeding up and working round the clock to accelerate maybe 3 to 5 quarters worth of plans into launches over the couple of weeks and couple of months as things started.
Is that sustainable? I guess, how do you make that a sustainable thing where things can change every couple of weeks or couple of months instead of 9? Like often when I'm quoted things by banks, they're quoted 9-month cycles. So I'm curious how you think about making that a sustainable thing versus a one-time push.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure some of my team members are on, so probably they would not like me to say it's sustainable to work the number of hours and number of days. But I would say this, we found ourselves, it's not completely sustainable, right? In terms of the number of, late nights, weekends, and living at home with your family and staying home yet not physically seeing them. That to me is not sustainable because the human body needs a break and you need to have connectivity to more than your job. That said, we've been on the path for a couple of years to really push ourselves from a tech platform standpoint to enable things to be not exactly just a snap, but really easier to change, right? Moving out of monolithic systems and connections into really more of a cloud-first strategy. We are still, on the path, but we're building microservices. We're utilizing a lot more partners. Blend is one of them, right? Which helps us to really be more nimble at a time when we need to make a strategic decision to make a quick switch. And so I think it's sustainable and actually can be accelerated when you look at things like that. I definitely don't think coming up with solutions, as some of us on this call have done, in 36 and 72 hours and having people pull all-nighters, endlessly, is sustainable. But as we put more technology in place, as we put newer solutions in place with a stronger modern day tech platform, that is what is not just sustainable, but something that will actually propel us into the future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think my take on that is that a lot of when I think, and I said this earlier today, but a lot of the underlying capabilities to serve your customers and the data that powers all of your customer interactions, especially on the what part of the world that we play, it seems like it's very overlapping. And so rebuilding that 10, 20, 50 times for all the new products doesn't make sense at the very least. And thinking about it in the world of services and an architecture that makes sense in the long run is super important. And one piece of that, I think, is channels. And so on, one thing you said to me before this panel is that you feel like the lines between physical and digital are getting blurred post-COVID. And one thing I was thinking about that is that one of the things most of the banks that I work with talk about is, or have in place, unfortunately, is just they have different systems by channel. Like they'll have a digital system, they'll have a branch system, maybe they'll have a call center system. And so like as the consumers are blurring the lines between how they're engaging with you, your systems are still kind of built in a world of channel by channel. So I'm curious how you think about that, and what are some of the things you've seen has worked for you, and things you think about in the future that maybe you haven't yet implemented but you want to do over time.
Yeah, thanks, Nima. Can you hear me first? Am I audible?
We can. Yep.
Okay, sorry. I did the mute and mute. So to answer your question, I have seen it in my personal career and now at Navy Fed that the companies or the enterprise who are blurring the line between the physical and digital are the ones who are actually going to succeed, right? Because there are a couple of trends going on, Nima, right? There's consumerization of workforce. We all expect the slickness of like Amazon Commerce or a Netflix in the apps we deal with in our day-to-day life, so to speak. So here at Navy Fed, I would say that we are right now traversing two worlds, right? You're right that when it comes to our customer or member interaction channels, the branch, the contact center, online, mobile, we have some level of similarity, but we also have some level of distinction when it comes to systems and experiences. I think Melissa touched on it. We are on the journey to kind of implement a true omni-channel philosophy, right? It's an architecture, design, and a pattern in the sense that how do you give seamless and frictionless experience independent of which member or customer channel you're coming from. So we are probably in the middle stages of that journey, Nima, I would say, and we have started with a mobile-first mindset. So it all starts with like the web and the mobile channels. And then it extends back, so to speak, to the contact center, branch, and even ATM for that matter. The other thing I would highlight there is that when we think about blurring physical and digital and kind of traversing the two worlds, the notion of digital transformation also gets deconstructed, right? You need to write modern APIs, which are channel agnostic and get the data from your systems of record. And then you have a presentation layer which is seamless, independent of where you are. So having said all of that, I would also say that there is something to say about human interaction, and you still have to keep that in mind, even as you design for like a digital native kind of workforce and consumer and all. Human interactions still matter, today and every day. So we just need to find that balance. Does that help?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And actually, one thing I was having this debate with our team yesterday around whether people should be able. This is unrelated necessarily to exactly banking, but there was a debate about home insurance, which is part of the mortgage process, and should we make that something that people can bind online? And I said we should make it so we don't need to talk to a human at all. And they interpreted that as we shouldn't have humans in the process. And I was like, no, I didn't mean it that way. I meant it should be built as if humans don't need to be there, but then let the consumer decide. And I think it goes back to that consumer-centric view of let your customers kind of engage with you in ways that technology permits. And fortunately, technology is advanced enough that you don't need to make the trade-off of which channel do I support or how do I support this. You can kind of in some ways have best of both worlds because things are getting so advanced and so quickly. And, we're investing a lot in technology, but there's other companies, there's so much innovation happening in the space that's going to enable that. And I think that customer-centric nature is like, from when I talk to you all and when I talk to some of the best companies in the space, that is something that they truly, truly put at the center. The member-centric case in your world, Sovan, is it's just so important because it becomes a true north that everyone can rally around and figure out what does that customer or member want. And speaking of customer-centric, Sunny, you're on the line and not on video, but that's okay. One thing you told me was that you hired, and by the way, we had a great experience working with Sunny and his team, figuring out how to quickly execute on how do we build an amazing omni-channel small business thing. And we had never done a small business loan before, but how do we do an amazing small business platform with him? One thing you mentioned to me, Sunny, was that you hired a chief customer experience officer. That was some version of that. And that's obviously great. And I think everyone should be thinking about that, like I said. But I'm curious, what do you think of as their specific mandate, and how do they work with you as the person who's actually responsible to deliver those things? And how do you make the trade-offs of like, here's the things that we can do and here's the things that we want to do, and help work and balance the needs of the customer with the realities of resourcing? As Melissa said, everyone can't be working 24 hours a day indefinitely.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Nima. Great question. And you all don't want to see me. I'm not very pretty, so it's probably better that I'm not on video. Probably saving you all pain. But anyway, seriously, no. And Nima mentioned and as a good example, we had just hired a new chief customer experience officer, and actually we've just hired a new chief marketing officer with extensive customer journey experience. So we're really reorienting around the customer, around journeys, around about 26 macro journeys that are going to really come to life. And I'll give you the microcosm of the PPP CARES Act experience, which we partnered with Blend on for the front end, and then broaden it a bit. So within PPP, what we normally would have done is said, oh crap, technology can't do much. Let's just put some PDFs out there and we'll just capture this information and then we'll brute force it. Well, we went a different direction, and in about 72 hours, we worked with Nima and team, and we put together a front end that we actually not just put it together, but actually used some of our CX folks to actually bring in about 12 different customers and actually test the experience, see where they got stuck, take notes, and actually improve it. So by the time between Friday and Monday when we went live, we'd actually made a number of improvements and enhancements by really putting the customer at the center. I would say even beyond that, what we started to do is our whole communication strategy around PPP was designed around what is that small business or commercial customer going through, and what will they want to know? Well, how will we be proactive in communicating with them so they're not left in the dark? And I thought there was applying that discipline, and Arthi Morali, who just joined us as our chief customer experience officer, really engaging in that dialogue, and her team of UI UX design thinking types really getting engaged in that process led to a pretty different experience than we probably would have been able to create maybe a year before that. More broadly, what we're finding is as you start to look horizontally, so we're looking at onboarding journeys, for example, what you're finding is we've done a great job of creating individual siloed experiences for a mortgage or a DDA or a credit card or for this or that. What we haven't done is actually put the customer at the center of that and said, how do we create an experience that no matter what products or combination of products they want to use, how do we bring that experience to life in a meaningful way and not make it take 45 days and hundreds of pieces of paper or whatever it might take today when you start to get into those more complicated scenarios. So for us, we're taking our 20 folks, for example, on that journey, putting them in a room for about a 90-day sprint. And it includes branch folks and other folks. And we're really getting into the, gaps in product design, gaps in product policy, gaps in technology. And we're going to come out of that with a prioritization around investments and where we want to put our teams to fit those challenges. So we're really excited about the reorientation we're going through around journeys. And I'm really excited to work with partners like Blend who have capabilities and platforms that allow us to really bring those customer-driven experiences to life.
Yeah, and I would say one learning for me in COVID and working with you all is that, I think Blend's DNA, at least historically, was we would build the capabilities and we would package it up nicely and we'd say, here's the journey. And I don't actually necessarily think that's wrong, because a lot of people, we want to start quickly with getting things live. One thing I believe is going to change with every organization is being able to get things live faster, starting small, continue to expand and build on top of that foundation over time. I think that's going to continue to be the case. One thing that I didn't understand was just the sheer amount of complexity of all the different things that would be thrown your way. I mean, we hadn't been through a crisis since we started Blend. And so it wasn't just even PPP, it was loan modifications, forbearance, the deposits into the accounts for the relief funds and all those things. And those are things that I think in a perfect world, we blend and can help you and build all those things and just offer them as a service to you. But in the real world, where your needs are even diverging from those things because how you react to the crisis and what you do is different, I think one thing that I've gotten a little bit more comfortable with is figuring out how to offer those things as components that you can easily put together. And that's what, if people watch earlier, I think it's worth going and seeing that product roadmap session, especially with Alden talking through how we're unlocking that. But I think that's going to be necessary, whether it's Blend or another platform. It's like, how do we unlock those components to enable you to serve your customer or your member over time? And one thing I was thinking about around digital, Melissa, is there's a lot of things on your plate. You're probably in charge of digitizing an entire organization with hundreds of products. And then you have partners like us, and I'm sure many others that you're thinking about working with. What things do you think are sacred and I would never partner on that thing? And what things are things that you would say I would partner on that? And what things are things that you'd say I want capabilities, but I want to be able to build my own? And just trying to understand how you think about what parts are unique to you and Fifth Third, or it could be unique to your peer and their bank, versus what parts are, these are things that we should exist and we would use it if it existed and was really good.
All right. Okay. Yeah, let me hit that. But right before that, Savan, I think, as you were saying, to me, the inspiration, and for me, it comes about down to purpose as well, which will relate to my answer to this question. But for me, it's about what is somebody's purpose. I'm a person whose personal purpose and professional purpose are actually completely the same, which is about enabling the lives of others. And so we can all give a lot of those examples with the crisis that we've been through and are in right now for our own employees, as well as for the customers that we're serving, and frankly, our local communities. And for a lot of the employees that I work with and a lot of my team members that I get the privilege to serve, it's about that purpose. And so at Fifth Third, things like this allowed us to connect even more deeply on a human level with our customers, calling millions and millions of customers just to check in and see if they were okay. And we did the same thing with our employees, right? And I'm sure many other companies did that. But when you feel a strong sense of connection to others, it makes you more excited and more inspired to do more, to go beyond, right? As we helped each other through situations like no childcare at home and children running around in the background and muting while you were taking a time out to get the dog to stop barking at the FedEx person or whatever it happened to be, it just kind of breaks things down into a more base level of humanity and everything we're all dealing with. And I think that's been a big part of the learning for so many people, is taking that veil away of we've got to have total separation of what we're getting done and how we're doing it. And then if you jump to what you were asking about, Nima, when I look at capabilities and where I'd partner and where I'd build, what I think is a unique differentiator and what we are about at Fifth Third is relationship banking. And like Sunny said earlier, you got to get away from the silos of I'm doing this product or I'm doing that. How do I get to the customer journey? How do I get to things together? For me, it's about that holistic relationship. And what is that job that the customer is trying to get done, right? Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'd love to take a loan, or I really want to open a savings account today. Woo, that's exciting, right? Nobody wants a mortgage, by the way. They just want to own a wonderful home and create memories and have an awesome life, right? And so it's about breaking it down into that human level, that human connection, the relationship. Then when I look at capabilities and partnerships, we very much employ the buy and partner before we build strategy. And for me, What's uniquely ours are the way that we can connect things together, the way that we can uniquely bring, as Sovan was saying, the physical and the digital, and really have the holistic connectivity that makes you excited to be in a relationship with us, because we're there for you every step of the way. We might be a little ahead of you, we might be a little behind you, we might be picking you up off the ground and taking you on when you need us to, but that's what we're going for. So when I look at partnerships and opportunities, or even fintechs to invest in, we're really looking for betting on the talent, betting on the growth, and betting on people that are going to build capabilities with us, and have us in mind on the product roadmap, so that we can focus on all of our energy on relationship and on connectivity and on bundling or overall journey management, as Sunny talked about, and less about individual items, right? What we will uniquely build are things that are absolutely unique to financial services, where you need the talent in. And frankly, there's not a huge amount of those. It's about the way you stitch them together and connect them to your overall network that really is the differentiator.
Yeah, and I mean, even still, I would say, and I agree 100%. I would just say, even still, it's hard because you all have big organizations that can't, have to do certain things in a certain way, in a regulated way, and it's a risk working with a partner. Blend is in some ways like we're a fairly low risk partner in some ways, given that we've been around for a number of years. I mean, we're still building a lot of new things, as you know, but like there's probably much earlier stage partners that are even harder to be able to take a bet on. But I do think, and this is more, I guess, for those early stage partners, I think it's worth, to the extent that we can find ways to start small and build things together and build from that foundation, that's so important. And if you know me, you know that I'm a big proponent of starting small and growing and building over time, because it is a very long game. I mean, one of the nice things about financial relationships that consumers have with you is that they're fairly sticky. And not to say that people won't go elsewhere. I think in a 5-year time horizon, people will and can go elsewhere. But I think that if you serve them for 20 years, they're not going to leave you overnight because somebody launched a new mobile app. And so I think it does still mean that even though it's a very long game, finding ways to take action now in small ways to keep and then build on that is so important, and something that I think about a lot. And something that I always have to remind myself of when I'm thinking about a big bang release of something that I want to do is like, well, it's okay to start small. It's okay to be a little embarrassed about the first step, because it's not the end game that we're working on. And Sunny, I just saw a note that your video is now working, which means we do get to see your face. And you're a partner of ours who did take a chance on us. We had never done a small business loan. What were you thinking at that point? I mean, clearly you could have gone different paths. And then how do you think about since then we've talked a number of times and you've talked about how important partnership is for you to be able to do the things that you do. Did something click? Was it always part of your DNA? Did it change? And like, how do you think about your next 50 product areas that you're going to go and change, or maybe the bundling that you're going to change, or whatever it is that you're focused on next? How do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think the word, oh, there I am. I think the word partner is a big word, and I think it means something. To me, a partner is someone who gets in there with you and is willing to both give and receive feedback, both and sometimes radically candid feedback at 2 a.m. When you're trying to go through something. So I think there's a difference between a vendor, someone who sells you software, and a partner, someone who is going to really try to understand your ethos, what you're about, and hopefully there's a shared sense of purpose. I thought Melissa said that well. There's a purpose to all this, and I think as we were kind of evaluating the capabilities and looking at different options for PPP, you guys had taken a stab at kind of, hey, we think it could look something like this, but we want your feedback, we want your insights, and I thought that was a really great way to approach it. To be honest, I actually kind of decided to take a chance on you guys when I finally pulled up the source code on the website when I was on the test site, and I looked at the elegance of the code that was represented there, and I was like, okay, this thing will should be able to handle 9,000-10,000 applications we're going to get in the first minutes, which we did get in an hour. I think that's kind of why I took a chance, and I really knew that we could create a better experience together. We could do it quickly. We had been working with Blend and using Blend for the mortgage origination, so that was one of the reasons we were able to move so quickly, is because you guys were already a partner. But I think going forward, starting to risks. We look for partners who, again, will get in there and work with us. We've worked together on a self-service mortgage modification forbearance process because we know that there's a lot of things coming. We're starting a pilot on some using the platform. If we can build some things ourselves with the blend tools. So this is the kind of partnership I look for. I've built a career in technology on finding the right partners who have the right attitude, who have the right tools, who have the right people, and then betting big with them. And I'm been one of those partners for us, and I'm grateful for the partnership. It's not just PPP, but overall, and excited about the possibilities for the future.
Yeah, and I would just say we appreciate you all taking a risk on, all three of you taking a risk on us that you're different for the different ways that you did. And I think one thing that I've noticed is there's a lot of, or in some cases there's scar tissue around, there hasn't been a lot of software innovation, but to your point, when you look at the source code, when you examine the architecture, when you look at the experiences that are created, whether it's us or someone else, I think that's the best way to evaluate, because anybody can say anything, but actually building things that work and scale and are frictionless is really hard and really important. And so, I think, I in some ways feel kind of bad for the financial services industry because there's been a lack of new technology investment for a long time. And so, but now I think it's happening now. And so I think it's, and not just Blend, but a lot of things in the ecosystem. And so it's a great time to be a financial services CIO or chief digital officer, because you almost have a playground of things that you can choose from to say, I'm going to maybe I'll start small and take a chance on this thing, but I'm going to grow that from there. And there's so much happening at great speed. I have a couple questions from the audience. Sovan, what is the biggest challenge one should keep in mind to go to an omni-channel platform when you have multiple systems in place?
I think the biggest challenge and opportunity, Nima, is to not lose the focus on simplicity, right? When we're thinking about omni-channel. At the heart of it, there is, like I've told, a unified presentation layer. There are modern APIs to connect back to your data stores and systems of record, and then you wrap it all with like a member-centric or customer-centric case ecosystem. So I think as you think about implementing omni-channel, just keep that in mind that many a times, actually less is more. It's good to double down on common purpose platforms, which can extend and do the work, and think in terms of systems of interaction, systems of integration, and systems of record. If you think about those three layers, and that will help in bringing all channels together: contact center, IVRs, ATMs.com, or online and mobile. Right? So that would be my answer.
Thanks, Sovan. Melissa, what's the biggest technology challenge facing Fifth Third today?
We still have some core systems that we need to upgrade or replace, right? And I think whenever you're looking at those situations, you've got a pretty major undertaking going on. And so we've done a lot with a variety of them, but it's as you said, I mean, the industry's been around a long time. Many of these things can last for ages, and I think that's one of our challenges. But overall, I would say the biggest technology challenge, and just challenge in general, is really talent, right? We continue to have, when you look at leading tech, you look at leading digital, leading innovation, leading design, customer experience, as Sunny mentioned before, it really is a competition on talent and on having those engaged and inspired employees that Sovan mentioned. And that is really the biggest challenge that at least we continuously face. We've got a great team and we've been hiring more and more awesome employees, but there are fantastic opportunities and challenges at many companies, not just in financial services. So that's what I'd say is our actual biggest challenge.
Yeah. And I think as the purpose aspects of financial services become clearer, hopefully it will attract industry talent or talent from other industries who are really good at these things to come and join the missions that you all have and your member and customer focus. Well, thank you so much, Sovan, Melissa, Sunny. Appreciate you taking the time to speak to me and speak to our audience today. You all have been great partners of ours, and thanks for doing that. And thank you for everyone in the conference for taking time out of your day to join us for Blend Forward. I know there are technical difficulties. I faced some, you faced some. So I apologize for that, but we'll work through it. I think that in this space of digital conferences evolving, and at least we can say that you didn't have to get on a plane to fly to see it in person, although there would have been fewer technical difficulties. Hopefully we saved you some time and you can spend more time with your families or building cool things. If you did miss any sessions or you want to rewatch the content, it's going to be all on the website. All the things that are on the record are going to be on the website. We updated the website with some detail on the platform that you saw today. So you'll be able to see in detail how that thing works and see what kind of experiences it can help create for your customer. Remember, I know how busy you all are. It means a great deal. We had over 1,000 people viewing this today. And so I think it's really great to see you all excited and caring about the way that technology can change your business. And, we're honored to be one of the people who's helping build that with you. And so, and I think there is a world in the next, let's call it short to medium term, where you will be able to serve your customer across every product and every channel seamlessly and have that be a real-time kind of consumer grade experience. And so we're very aligned with helping you get there. And that's something that we care a lot about. And lastly, as I mentioned on the panel, we couldn't be here without all of you in some form or fashion, whether you took a bet on us early or you decided to use new technology or take a risk on technology when you'd been burned by vaporware or other things in the past. So thank you for that. And so stay tuned. We're going to post a bunch of the links and things on the website. And thanks again for joining.